Today, we're going to see how each state voted relative to the country in the 1972 presidential election. We'll compare the popular vote in each state to the national popular vote, and that's going to show us if it voted to the left or the right. So before we get into the map, let's get a quick refresher. 72 was that massive Nixon landslide. He finished with 520 electoral votes, and he won almost every state. He got 49 of them, and that was worth 60.7% of the vote. George McGovern took the loss for the Dems. He got just 17 electoral votes out of one state plus D.C., and that was worth 37.5%. So for today, we want to know the margin or the difference between Nixon and McGovern. So 60.7 minus 37.5 comes out to a pretty big 23.2% margin for Nixon. So we're going to see how many states were able to keep up with that. Any state that voted for Nixon by more than that is relatively redder. Anything less than that, or the one state that voted for McGovern, is going to have a blue trend. So let's get back onto the map. And these are the electoral votes from 1972. And as we go through the map, we're going to have shading. The darkest colors are going to be 10% or more. The very lightest colors are going to be under 1%. So we've got 4 levels. So let's break down the first state alphabetically. We've got Alabama. Nixon won the state with 72.4. McGovern got 25.5. The margin for Nixon was 46.9. That's about twice what the national popular vote of 23.2% was. So the difference between Alabama and the entire country means this state voted to the right of the country by 23.7. So that's how this works. Let's quickly go through the rest of these states. Alaska was very close to voting how the entire country voted. It was at 23.5% for Nixon. So it was redder by a very mild 0.3%. Arizona also redder by 8. Arkansas was up there at 14.9. Then in California, of course, this was Nixon's home state. This is the first one that voted to the left of the country, and it comes in at 9.7. Colorado was redder at 4.8. Connecticut was bluer at 4.7, and Delaware at 2.8. Then it was a lot redder in Florida at 20.9, and Georgia 27.1. Even Hawaii was redder at 1.8. Idaho same direction at 15. It was bluer in Illinois at 4.7. Indiana other direction at 9.6. Iowa back to the left at 6.1. Then back toward the GOP in Kansas at 15. Kentucky 5.4. Louisiana 13.7. And Maine, this state was almost spot on with the national popular vote. At large, it was just 0.2% bluer. The first district was 0.4 bluer. And the second district was exactly 23.2, the same as the country. If you add another digit in there, it's going to barely break slightly toward the Republicans. Maryland was similar at 0.7% redder. In Massachusetts, that was the only state that McGovern was able to win. It was way bluer by 32.2. Also bluer, it was Michigan at 8.8 and Minnesota 17.7. Mississippi was relatively the reddest state of the country, coming in at 35.4. Missouri much milder at 1.4. Montana was bluer at 3.2. Nebraska redder at 17.8. Nevada also 4.2. New Hampshire 5.9. New Jersey 1.6 and New Mexico 1.3. New York was bluer at 5.9. North Carolina redder at 17.4. North Dakota was to the right at 3.1. Ohio to the left at 1.7. Oklahoma back to the right at 26.5. Then it was bluer in Oregon at 13. Pennsylvania 3.2. And Rhode Island 17. In South Carolina, it was redder at 19.5. South Dakota, that was George McGovern's home state. He didn't win it, but it was still relatively bluer by 14.5. Tennessee, almost the same in the opposite direction, 14.7. Texas, redder at 9.8. Utah, redder at 18. Vermont comes in at 3%, and Virginia is at 14.5. Washington, bluer at 4.9. West Virginia, redder at 4. Wisconsin, bluer at 13.5. And then Wyoming comes in redder at 15.3. And Washington, D.C. is on there. That comes in way bluer at 79.7. So those are all the states and all the percentages. Now let's take a look at this map. At the top, if you total up all the electoral votes back then, the states that voted to the left of the country came in at 272. To the right were 266. So the Dems have the tiniest of advantages here. And pretty much all of that is going to be concentrated from California up the West Coast, then states in the North, the Midwest, and the Northeast. The most Republican-heavy states were concentrated in the South, the Deep South, and then into the West and Southwest. But there's a few exceptions out there. North Dakota did not vote similar to McGovern's home state of South Dakota. Washington and Montana were bluer, while Idaho was sandwiched in between, and it was redder. In the Northeast, you've got several states that went in different directions. Iowa was to the left. West Virginia this time was to the right. right. There's a whole lot here, but the main takeaway was Nixon massively dominated this election. The popular vote share was 23%. It was going to be pretty tough for the individual states to be able to keep up with that kind of a margin. So it's tough to know exactly why certain states voted the way that they did, especially when you go back 5 or 6 decades. But this isn't about why it happened. This is about what happened. This is the map for how states voted relative to the entire country in 1972. So let me know in the comments. What do you think about this Nixon landslide? Which states stand out to you as voting to the left or the right of the country? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.